Pacific Viewpoint is proudly brought to you by South Pacific Loans, caring for the community's financial needs. Call us today on 0800 88 98 88.
Good evening and welcome to Pacific Viewpoint. Recently, the New Zealand government ceased funding of the Samoan publications known as the Tupu and Folaunga series. The decision caused controversy and outcry in the Samoan community, leaving other Pacific language groups contemplating their fate in this tough economic environment. So tonight we are going to discuss the issue and also ask the question, how important is it to teach our Pacific children their native language in a foreign country? So here with us tonight is the person who led the rallying of letters against the government's decision, Judy McCaffrey from Auckland University, and MP Su'a Williams-Sio, who released a strong media statement accusing the government of axing the series and being dictatorial. Good evening to you both and welcome to the program. Now, we did invite the Education Minister, Honourable Ian Tolley, to participate in tonight's discussion. Unfortunately, our invitation was declined and instead offered the following response. The Tupu and Folaunga resources have not been axed. The ministry has paused the development of new issues of Tupu and Folaunga while they investigate how New Zealand curriculum support materials can best accelerate the achievement of Pacifica students in English literacy. The investigation will also focus on ways to better support teachers to make explicit connections between a student's first language and English. The ministry continues to provide language guidelines, resources and professional development for teachers to support the teaching of 5 Pacifica languages as part of the action from the Pacific Education Plan. The Pacifica languages are an integral part of the learning languages area of the New Zealand curriculum. These resources also support the preservation and maintenance of Pacifica languages. We will be able to advise schools about the outcome of the research and what our proposed next steps are for improving support for Pacifica students' English literacy by June 2011. So let me start with you, Sio. Sio, you have been accusing the Ministry of Education's plans to seize the Samoan publications as an act of dictatorial. A very strong word to use. Why?
Because I think that's been reflected by the response from Whangasa, the organisation of parents and teachers promoting Samoan, a range of schools that promote bilingualism in their curriculum, and from researchers into this area, because they've just done it without any consultation to the people that will be affected by it. There is no research to back up their reasoning behind this, and so I think those words are appropriate. It just shows sheer disdain for the Pacific community.
And the government claims it may not be proving effective and has put it up for review. They also claim Pacifica students' literacy levels are consistently lower than those for other groups. Don't they have a good point? What's your viewpoint?
Well, show us the proof. Because the proof by the researchers who organise the programs that are being currently used by curriculum is now internationally used. But so when she says those things, we've got to say, well, show us the proof. As far as we're concerned, there is a lot more sounder research organised by people like Judy McCaffrey and many others that show that children who are speaking their first language pick up skills, have a far stronger academic base than others who are purely speaking English. And by speaking their first languages, by being bilingual or multilingual, they're able to transfer those skills into learning English. This government is saying to us, we should only be learning English, and we're saying, well, those are the things in the bad old days. This is the new world. We're part of this society. We're not going to go away. We love being bilingual, love being multilingual, and that's the way the governments ought to be supporting that sort of desire from the wider community.
Judy, what's your viewpoint?
Our heritage languages, there's nothing wrong with English, learning English, but there's also nothing wrong with having both English and Samoan or Tongan, Niuean, Cook Island and Tokelau and other Pacific languages. And as research has proven, there's evidence of research overseas and also here in New Zealand about the value of bilingual education. You know, the times have gone where, when we were growing up, that English was the way to success. That is not the case now. That we should give our children the choices, our mokopunas the choices, to have both. And for those who can speak, read and write in their heritage language, to have that choice and that right to do so.
Is this the government's responsibility to fund the native language here in New Zealand, or parents' responsibility? So
it's both, but I mean, parents can't do it on loan. Government's role is to support and ensure that there is an environment where good things can flourish. And so they need to be supporting an environment where parents and the younger generation are able to exceed and release their fullest potential. And I don't think that Pacific children or children who are born with other heritage languages can fully find their potential unless by simply saying you've got to speak English. I don't like it when governments go out and dictatorially say you can only speak one language, because for our communities we speak more than one language. That's sort of why I get so upset about it, is because it reminds me of the colonial attitudes. And if you look at it, the history which researchers again have sort of shown up, you know, those are some of the stupidest things that they've ever done.
Judy, you said in one of your media releases, this decision is disappointing, short-sighted, and it will damage the hard work and the progress to keep Pacifica languages alive here in New Zealand. Do you still feel that way now, or has it changed?
Io, aupito. Absolutely. I feel strongly about that because of our children, our grandchildren, and especially if you look at the countries like Niue, Cook Island and Tokelau, they are New Zealand citizens. And their languages and cultures are indigenous to the realm of New Zealand. So, and their languages, the Niue and Cook Island, are in the list of endangered languages in the United Nations list. And so that is a huge concern to us. And my mokopunas are part Cook Islanders, and I want them to have that choice, to grow up having that choice, to be able to identify themselves as Cook Islanders, as Tongans, as, you know, within Aotearoa New Zealand. We've got a huge Pacific population here, and we live here now.
And you think this is the government's responsibility to fund the publications? They're part of our government responsibility to fund it.
Look, bilingualism was in the Pacific Education Plan, or may I call it the Palangi Education Plan for Pacific peoples. And then that disappeared, that goal disappeared when the minister, the current Minister of Education, came in and changed the plan without consultation with Pacific communities, with the experts in the field, Pacifica, our Pacifica people, and took those goals out of the Pacific Education Plan.
So is this the reason why you two upset, because there were no consultations done by the Minister of Education?
Well, it's more than that. I think they're just short-sighted, and they're not placing Pacific people as a priority. I think it's, you know, to say on the one hand, you have in other parts of this government, they say they support Pacific communities, but then this is contradictory when you have another senior minister through her actions, which speak louder, are reducing, or she's saying pausing, axing something that I think is important for the future of the younger Pacific generation. But I think the other point that needs to be highlighted, as Judy has said, is that Cook Island, Niue and Tokelauan, those countries are part of the New Zealand realm. They're New Zealand citizens. And they identified that without their languages, without support for those languages, they'll lose their language. When they lose the language, they lose a lot more than that. They'll lose a heritage, they'll lose a history, they'll lose a bit of culture. And for some of our troubled young people, they lose a sense of who they are and where they belong. So it's a lot more than that. This is about what sort of future do we want to build for New Zealand.
I came from Tonga in 2006. I need a future here with my family. I decided to buy a house. I went to the bank and they turned me down. So I went to South Pacific Loan and they decided to give me a second chance. So they upgrade my credit, and then I went back to the bank and they offered me a loan. And then I buy this house and here I am today. I highly recommend anyone who haven't tried South Pacific Loan, try South Pacific Loan, because they give me a chance to be here with my house today.
Give us a call or come and see us, because we understand the Pacific people.
Mola fo ina tupe Samoa ma Australia ma Tonga. Piki tupe Australia ma Samoa pe tu fo I social accounts in New Zealand nei. Pa tau tongi nei piki a mau. Vaya siaki talaina il malai valele. Talaina o matou tupe apia il Nick Money Transfer. Po sa vai il Marie Money Transfer. O le matou tuatusi o numera fitu Princess Street o tau. Talaina il matou official afal valul taiao il lima il afiafi. Asonga fua le asfarele, ma le afa le valu le tae o le afa sfulu le astona. Pafsota I mail matou telefoni I le lua fitu o favalu o le lua fitu ono lua tolu fatasi. Mo nisi fa matalanga, fa taitele Samoa I laulalo mai.
How important is our native language in shaping us in a foreign country?
Well, very important. There's a lot of research on language and culture, language and identity. And if you ask me in Tongan or in Samoan, like the word tauhiwa, teulewa, whakaapa-apa, whaaloalo, those words gives many meanings, not just respect or relationship. There's much more different meanings coming in those different contexts of those words, and just taking those away from our children as part of their identity. And New Zealand is a multicultural society, and the cultural literacy is part of the who we are in New Zealand, learning about each other and living together in harmony. And but also going back to the point about our relationship, our special relationships of Pacific people with Aotearoa New Zealand, not just the Pacific People's Constitution Report 2000 states that historical and constitutional relationships with Pacific peoples, and the current report that was just released in December last year that enhanced that particular relationship. Samoa has a special relationship with New Zealand because, New Zealand administered Samoa until 1962. So it's a treaty of friendship. So we do have those special relationships. Government has the responsibility. We also need to work together with government because we cannot do it alone.
If you look at Europe, Europe uses multi-languages as a normal, natural part of their everyday communication. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's being embraced by all of that part of the world. Yet here, where we've got so many diverse cultures and languages, we seem fixated on this dumb idea that we should only be learning English. And I'm saying to you, in the part of the world that I live in Manukau, we speak English, Māori, Samoan, Tongan, Cook Island, Chinese, Korean, Spanish. We speak a host of language, and that's a part of our everyday language. And so I think for some of the people in this government, their worldview is very minute and confined to whatever they're comfortable with. And I think that's just ancient. That belongs to the bad old days of colonialism. We need to look forward and need to build a strong community of smart, intelligent young people. And in the Pacific community, we've got that potential. And so governments have a role to play in supporting and building that strong base. And I think them cutting the resources to this is just wrong, plain wrong.
Imagine we are going to China, a Tongan and a Samoan, we expect the government of China to fund our native language in China. Do you think they will do that?
Oh, look, we've fought for these things since the first arrivals over 5 decades ago. New Zealand, this is our home. China's not yet our home, but New Zealand is part of the Pacific. We are here to stay, and whether people like us or not, we're not going to move away from here. And that's the challenge, because, I'm thinking ahead. I look at my kids, I think most of our families, our kids are going to be bilingual, multilingual. And that's the way we should be encouraging that, not trying to stifle and dumbing them down by saying you should only be speaking one language. And I think in a multicultural world where people are speaking different languages, we need to be encouraging that. But New Zealand, this is our home. And so I'm saying in our home, we need to speak more than English.
So do you think funding Pacific language is not the priority of this government?
I don't think it is a priority. Governments work on that basis. They put money where their priority is. This government's priority, you look at their actions, they're given about 50% of tax cuts to the very wealthy people. 600 people on the IRD roll making $1 million a year get an extra $1,000 a week, whereas those on 40,000 or less be lucky if they get 20 or $30.
This is the majority of us.
And removing, and then adding GST, they get nothing home. They're worse off for the next 4 years.
And according to the Minister of Education, Honourable Anne Tolley's statement, she said, the Ministry of Education is reviewing whether these are the most effective resources to support Pacifica education. Surely all government-funded programs should be reviewed, do you think, and tested?
Well, they stopped the publication of tupu and folaunga and then review it. That's what they're saying.
Do you think it is their responsibility to do the review?
Well, you can review, but before you cut or stop something, you have to consult with specific people, with the parents, with communities, with experts in the languages, in bilingual education. They've got the reports, it's there. But the minister wants to push English literacy only, not literacy in Pacific languages and English.
So what can we do as a Pacific people here in New Zealand?
Sign the petition. I mean, Judy and other researchers have organised a petition that I'm supporting, and I've sent around to a lot of the church organisation, explaining to them that this is about viewing the future for our young people, building a strong base for them. And so we've got a petition that's circulating at the moment. People need to sign it if they support what we're saying about the importance of learning their first language or
because this is not just for the Samoan, it covers all the Pacific.
Yeah, this is for all the main Pacific languages. And Judy and others have got a meeting coming up next week in
Where?
Ngā Tapawai Hall.
Ngā Tapawai.
Ngā Tapawai Community Centre on Wednesday the 16th of February from 6 p.m. So I urge all of you, our mātuas, our whānau, Pacific leaders, the media, everyone to come along and hear about this update of what our government is doing to our children and what's best for our children, because we know what's best for our mokopunas and our whānau, and we want to be part of that education and not being decided by those who are pushing English literacy only. And, you know, I don't want to be, I'm not a Palangi. I don't want to be, you know, my children growing up not knowing, you know, who they are, their heritage language. And that enhances their contribution as you know, citizens, as people of our society, in a positive way.
I think we need to make sure, we're not saying we should not be learning English. What we're saying is we need to learn English as well as the other heritage first languages. But when our children learn those first languages, those skills they pick up enhances their ability to learn English and other languages. The other thing, in addition to that meeting, I think if there are organisations or churches who would like for myself or Judy and the researchers behind this petition to come and talk to them more, would be happy to organise meetings and come to where they are and talk to them about this petition. We're gathering some momentum, but we still need more signatures on that, just to send a very clear, strong message that we want our children to be to learn first languages, heritage languages, to learn about being that bilingual, multilingualism is okay in New Zealand.
Thank you, Sua. One last word.
Yes, and one last word around our Pacific languages, and it's because it's all comes down to policy. I just reiterate that we need the Pacific Education Plan be reviewed. Pacific people is to be consulted. Those goals of bilingual education, bilingualism, which will enhance and empower our children in academia to be included in the Pacific Education Plan. And we, as Sua mentioned, we had the human rights, the hearings that our Pacific families have written to the Human Rights Commission of their huge concern about this. It's not just here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, but also from Niue. We've got Niue communities from Niue, from the Cook Islands, who are all joining in this push and this huge concern around our languages and our cultures, which is part of the fabric of New Zealand society.
Thank you, Judy. Headstones in the Pacific community have often been a mark of respect for our loved ones passing, but in recent times, some have found the purchasing experience more like a battle. Amongst a few other credible headstone companies is Parkinson and Belschool. Director Peter Gibson told Pacific Viewpoint that he has been serving the Pacific community for more than 20 years and wants us to know his company is one we can trust. Is there any advice you can offer these families and any other families looking to purchase headstone in the future?
So, Teja, I think when people are looking to purchase a headstone, they need to have confidence in the company that they're dealing with, that they understand their needs of what they want as for a memorial for their family, and that the company's not just interested in their money, that they are actually willing to provide a comprehensive service as part of selling the headstone to them.
How can the families protect themselves?
They protect themselves by making sure that when on the order form that they should have an order form, because that is a contract between the company and the customer, that it sets out in detail what type of headstone, the size of the headstone, whether it includes the wording, whether it includes installation, does it include the photograph. So in our contracts we give our customers a complete contract that shows exactly what is there, and we give them the price. And the only way that will change is if the customer changes what they want. They should make sure they get a receipt for any money they pay across, regardless of whether it is cash or cheque or EFTPOS. They should make sure they get a receipt so that they do verify their payments, and this leaves no doubt.
What is a reasonable deposit that a family would pay at first sight?
Some of that depends upon when the people want the memorial. If they come in and they want the memorial within 4 or 5 weeks, then they will have to pay, maybe up to 50%. If the family are planning well in advance and are looking for a memorial to be completed within 6 or 9 months, then we only require anything from $100 deposit, and we leave the payments up to the family as long as it's paid for 3 or 4 weeks before it's due to go into the cemetery.
So is that the same with all the other headstone companies?
That's our policy. Other headstone companies may have other payment terms.
So what happened then if a family would go to another headstone company and they are told to pay the full amount on the first visit?
I think that anybody regards for a full payment for a memorial well in advance of the unveiling date, they should be very careful to make sure they protect their deposit. Sometimes bigger deposits are required if we are designing and making a specific memorial for a family which is very unique. That obviously we cannot carry on and do that with only $100 deposit. So it does vary from memorial to memorial, but generally we do try and make sure that people don't have to front with a large deposit.
So how do you work with your customers to ensure they receive their headstones as they want it and on time?
Well, from the time the customer pays their deposit, we tend to work with them to make sure they bring in all their wording, bring in their photos. We put together proofs for their lettering so they can see what it's going to look like. And so over the process of when they're leading up to the unveiling, they should be in contact with us on a regular basis to make sure that everything is not left till the last minute.
How long it will take your company from lettering and the whole process up to the finishing product and be able to deliver on time?
Normally we work on approximately a 6-week delivery, and that gives us time and gives the family time to make sure that everything is correct. What we find is when people rush things at the last minute, they make mistakes in the spelling of names or get dates wrong. So if they can give themselves more time, that actually makes it a lot easier for the family and doesn't put so much stress on them.
Well, even though Otahuhu has lost one headstone company, your company, Parkinson and Bowscole, is opening up a new one. Can you share with us about that?
Yes, our new showroom on the corner of Great South Road and Mason Ave, right in the middle of the shopping centre, so there should be something that will suit everybody's budget.
Okay. Well, all the best, Peter, for your new showroom, and thank you for your time. That's all we have time for tonight. These are the viewpoints of our guests. But what's yours? Well, as you know, we always love to hear your feedback about the program, and you can do that by emailing us on myviewpoint@pacifica.tv or visit us at our website, that is www.pacifica.tv. Click Pacific Viewpoint and then leave a comment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.